Includes a check-cashing future Hall of Famer in Bernard Hopkins and those belt-holding young guns in the midst of their prime, and now potentially another capable fighter ready to enter the mix. 31-year-old Yordenis Despain. A closer look. All those great amateur bouts, part of the famed Cuban national team. Defeated current light heavyweight champion Jean Pascal in the 04 Olympics. Fled Cuba in 09. Left behind 2 daughters to come after his dreams here in the U.S. And he is now trained by former world titleist, prominent American trainer Buddy McGirt. This their first fight together. The tall and athletic Ismail Salak stands opposite him, 6'3 and a half, 174 and a half pounds, 14-0, 12 knockouts. And for those who watched the undercard of Roy Jones, Bernard Hopkins pay-per-view last spring, you got an impressive sneak peek of Salak. He blew out the veteran light heavyweight Daniel Judah in just 2 rounds. Remember, Zab's older brother, he went the distance with the likes of Glenn Johnson, Eric Harding, Yusef Mack in his career, but Salak got rid of him in 2. So Salak and Despain ready to go. Teddy has the fight plan.
Everybody wishes that their career would take off into space. No different for our main event fighters tonight. The trick is, how do you do it? Well, one way is come here to Epcot and visit the cosmos. See all those beautiful constellations. The other, watch the fight plan. Let's build a rocket ship now for Despaigne. I'll be Despaigne. Saul's gonna be Salak. Salak, very slick. If you throw to his head, guess what? You're gonna go into outer space. So lower it a little bit, go to the chest, keep him off balance a little bit, and then attack that skinny body. I also noticed that there's a little kink in his armor. When he throws the right uppercut, he dips and he drops his left hand. He shows you what he's gonna do. When he does that, bang! Step in, catch him with that right hand. Send him off to Venus, to Mars, to Jupiter. You're the star. All right, how does Salak now launch his career to new heights? Or he could go hang out with the Disney character Pluto. That's one way. Or he could shoot a comet named the right hand. He can land that punch. I'm gonna be Salak. Saul's gonna be Despaigne. Now Salak, we already established he's a slicker, faster guy. He's gonna want to box. Keep the stronger guy off balance a little bit. This man, Despaigne, has a bad habit. He loves to throw right hands over the jab. He does a pretty good job. When you throw that jab, he throws the right hand, but he drops the left hand. So you trick him. You get him to throw the right hand when you want him to, and you nail him with your right hand. So you throw a little bit of a decoy, a slow jab, bang, and you catch him with your right hand. If you do that, no crash landing for you. You're gonna go on all those attractions, have a good time, get a little popcorn, walk around. You wanna go on Space Mountain?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go see Pluto also.
Pluto?
Yeah, take me to see Pluto.
What about Goofy?
Yeah, let's go.
I like Saul with the souvenir T-shirt. Well, there is Buddy McGirt, former world titleist, trainer of the year back in 2002, and now his first fight with Despain. By the way, we went a couple of years with everybody saying Yordenis Despain. That's how it was to be pronounced, and he said last night, you know what? Despain. So that's what we go with, Despain.
Contest. From this point, about you both obey my air command. I wish you both luck. Touch gloves, come up outside the belt.
Max Parker is the third man inside the ropes. A significant light heavyweight clash between these 2 unbeatens scheduled for 10. Here we go.
Ready? Despain is the physically stronger guy. You look at him, you think you're looking at a statue, maybe a statue of Hercules. But he doesn't really fight like that kind of guy. He likes to box for the most part and be smart, a lot like Salak. Wouldn't be a bad idea, though, for the bigger, or at least a more muscular Despain to try to go to that skinny body of Salak. One way to slow down a guy who's pretty cute and pretty confident.
Test the waters with that right hand, does Despain.
Both guys are going to have chances to land the right hand. Despain has a habit of when he throws the right hand, his left hand is not up protecting him. And Despain, like a lot of guys with a lot of amateur fights, well, he's calm and he's confident with trying to time someone's jab. He tries to throw the right hand over your jab. I think
there,
like that.
There it is right there.
Exactly. But what I would do if I was Salak, what I was talking about in the fight plan is, decoy him a little bit. Give him a little fake jab. A little, just to lure him in a little bit. And then when he goes to throw the right hand over the jab, shoot your right hand. And you're going to catch Despain with his left down. You say you never want to get caught with your pants down. But Despain can be caught with his left down. That's what he has to be careful for tonight.
He's conscious of it. He told us, he said, I went back and watched tape. I've noticed my technical flaw. He's been trying to improve it.
See, there's two problems. He listened to us on tape, and he heard it. You got to give him a lot of credit for that. But he hasn't corrected it yet, and his opponent watched that same tape.
Right.
So he's very aware that that opportunity lays there for him.
Block with the right hand. He's on the top of the head.
You know, you look at the name Silak. It's spelled S-I-L-L-A-K-A. It's almost like silk. And that's what he reminds me of, a silky smooth guy. Very fluid. Good rhythm. And I think Despain is going to have to disrupt that rhythm. And one way to do it is to use the jab, even if you lower it a little bit, and jab to the chest. Just to make contact, just to take him out of that rhythm.
Slow him down a little bit, put him off rhythm.
Yeah, you'd better not just look for power shots if you're Despain, because with a silky guy like this, you're going to be coming up short maybe all night long. You got to use that jab if you're Despain. And right now he's not using it quite enough. See, Despain looking for those power shots, and you know what? Silak's ready for that because he's cute enough to avoid them.
End of one.
Here at the Magic Kingdom, there's a spectacular sight. We're back here on Friday Night Fights in the state of Florida, at least, in Hollywood, Florida, for our main event. Again, March 18th, 9 Eastern, Demetrius Hopkins versus Brad Solomon. Back to the main event, Joe Tessitore and Teddy Atlas.
A couple of guys looking to advance themselves closer to another Hopkins. Light heavyweight division, top 10 is where Despain and Silak are looking to land round number 2 of our main event.
Again, you have the Ukraine, part of Russia, of course, and Silak versus Cuba, where Despain represented in the Olympics. And I said it in the opening, if this was in the Olympics, this would be a medal match. And you would think maybe for the gold medal. Both these fighters come from countries that have really good amateur programs.
Silak's father was from Sierra Leone. His mother, a doctor from the Ukraine. So he grew up in the old Soviet system.
You know, the
Came
right
to the
hand,
U.S. in 2008, and this is really an opportunity for him to have a breakthrough signature win.
both guys looking for the right hand. To me, that's very clear. Now, one thing that might be overlooked a little bit when you look at a guy like Silak, you know, he has fast hands, he puts combinations together. He's smooth, he's pretty slick, but he's got a good left hook to the body, too.
Combination from Silak.
This is exactly what Silak wants as far as a game plan. He doesn't want to really be close too often. He wants to be on the outside and have one of two different gears. If Despain waits, use the jab, get off a little bit with those quick hands. If Despain comes in, make a miss and counter. And then move a little bit. Move out and move to the side. Keep Despain, who looks physically stronger, keep him a little off balance. Get him frustrated. And that's exactly how Silak is going about it so far.
Get himself into a nice rhythm. Just missed with that left uppercut. It was a glancing blow.
Very dangerous fight for Despain tonight.
Give both guys credit for taking this fight at this stage of their career.
Yeah, you don't see this too often. And I see already Despain, a lot of people say, well, he's getting his motor running. I think he's getting a little urgent. I think he's getting a little reckless. And he's feeling the pressure to have to do something, and maybe something that's a little out of sorts.
And Silak is touching him more and more. There's a good, solid right hand by Ismail Silak. And down Despain. Remember, a fighter cannot be saved by the bell.
The referee is a little confused here. And you know what? Salak hurt himself a little bit there because he didn't go to the neutral corner. The referee had to force him back and wasted a lot of time, and he never got another shot at him. It gave Despain what he needed, a chance to get out of that round.
Sit down. Get down there.
There are the unified rules.
Tell him to stop getting hit with shots.
As you see the corner
Okay? And you're
of
getting him up
Despain
out of there.
with Buddy McGirt and
That's what I
company
want. Stay in the neutral corner. When you
has
done
to
this-
assess the damage.
Okay?
We talked about the right hand. Well, there's the right hand. Again, we talked about the right hand, but the jab blinds him. That jab, it wasn't a jarring jab, but it was a jab that took his vision away. Just enough for the right hand to get in there and do damage. Watch again, watch that jab. See, the jab was in front of his eyes, then the right hand was right behind it. Despain never knew what hit him. We're going to find out how recovered Despain is now, Joe.
All the years,
His
all
legs
the
don't look
amateur
right.
bouts. Escaping Cuba, trying to rise up and reach a point like this, and now trying to survive, and here comes the offensive attack of Salak.
If you have to be prepared for this kind of moment, Despain has not really had a chance to be prepared for this. For the most part, he's been the guy who's been doing the hunting. He's been the guy who's been doing the hurting.
And you see blood coming from the right eye of Despain.
Well, we already know how smooth and how skillful Salak is. We're going to find out now what kind of finisher he is.
Blood streaming down the face of the unbeaten Cuban.
Salak's making a decision. We're going to find out later if it was the right one. He could have went after Despain. His legs were a little wobbly. He's still playing it a little bit careful. He's not going after. He's getting a little showboat. He's getting a little fancy. We're going to find out whether or not he chose the wrong way or the right way to go about this, because I think he could be going after Despain more, and he's not. Now, why is he not going after him? A little bit more. He's having his way. He's picking shots. But, Joe, it could be two reasons. One, it's his mentality. Not to go after a guy, even when you have him hurt. Or maybe still a little too much respect for the background of Despain, the Cuban who was on the 2004 Olympic team. Maybe if he didn't know that about Despain, maybe he goes after the guy. And you know what? I'm going to argue with you, Joe, that he would go after him a little bit more if he didn't know who Despain was. If he was just another fighter who he hurt, not a guy who was from that great Cuban team, he'd probably be on him a little bit more.
There's an uppercut as blood is now pouring down out of the corner of both eyes. Despain has taken such damage from the final moments of the second round throughout this third round. Cut above both eyes with the oncoming assault of Ismael Salak.
Well, Chico Rivas is going to have the job of stopping that blood in the corner of Despain.
This is closing in on a worst-case scenario for Despain. So much on the line, and now so much to overcome. As he will head back to that corner. First time with Buddy McGirt. Chico Rivas is working the cuts. A lot of damage done.
Where you at, DJ? Chico, tell him he's got to use his jab. And he's got to move the head. Don't walk straight in. Water, baby, water. I got it. DJ, you got to walk straight in. Tell him you got to walk straight in, DJ. Okay. He can't walk straight in. He's got to use the double jab. And move the head. Tom, don't listen to the crowd. Tom, don't get caught up into the crowd, DJ.
You see the quick hands, but more importantly, you see the nice, smooth flow of Salak, and you see combinations. You're not seeing one punch at a time. So yeah, Despain has a decent defense. He blocks, he moves a little bit. Would work against 2, 3 punches, but 4 or 5, they start to find their mark a little bit, especially when Despain is in a defensive manner to begin with.
See how those cuts hold up here in round number 4. Ismail Salak off to a great start here in this meaningful main event. The 10-8 second round on Teddy's scorecard. That's when he scored the knockdown in the closing moments of that second round. This is a fast rising light heavyweight prospect. Many are very, very high on him. He's tall, over 6'3", has a huge wingspan, very good athleticism. He impressed last spring in getting rid of Daniel Judah, and now off to a fine start in this fight against the unbeaten Cuban, Yordenis Despain.
I know so far it's hard to make an argument for Despain, but fights aren't made for only 4 rounds at this point in people's careers. It's 10 rounds. And we're going to find out if Salak can keep himself together as Despain tries to reach into that amateur background, that confident background, and tries to find a way to turn this around. You know, one thing I noticed, it's obvious that Salak has it all his way, but I would still have some hope if I'm in the corner of Despain, not just because you're supposed to, but I noticed that, yes, Salak was a terrific amateur, just like Despain. He had 317 amateur fights. He won the silver in the 2005 World Championship. But I was looking into those records, Joe, and I noticed he was stopped several times in top competitions in the amateur. Didn't lose decisions. He got stopped by some of the top amateurs in some of those competitions. To me, that would be the Achilles heel. That would be the hope for Despain. Despain was a good amateur. He lost at the top sometimes, but he didn't get stopped.
Heard Buddy McGirt after that last round saying, do not walk straight in. He walked straight into a lot of damage in round 2 and 3. Here he has steadied himself a bit as Despain. Now on the inside, he's trying to smother Salak.
Salak does a little punching inside with a short right hand, a little bit behind the head. That's a rapid punch. That's something the referee's going to have to keep an eye on.
It's a right hand to the body that time.
Much better round for Despain, because a round that you can build on. Because right now you gotta find a reason to have confidence. This round's giving him a reason to have a little confidence.
He survived.
Right now.
You see the grease applied over both brows of the unbeaten Cuban, Yordenis Despain. Cut over the right eye early in the 3rd round, cut over the left eye later in that very same round. Been a wildly entertaining main event, both unbeaten light heavyweights. A reminder, Saturday on ABC, coverage will start at 2:30 Eastern for NASCAR's nationwide series at Vegas, the Samstown 300, as they continue to rev it up here at ESPN's Wide World of Sports in Disney World. Ismail Salak scoring the knockdown in round 2, and then continuing the insult in round 3 before Despain settled in round 4.
Again, Despain wants to get to the power shots, but for me, it's the jab that's going to make that possible. And he's starting to use that jab a little more. And what that's doing, even when he doesn't land the power shot, it's keeping Salak from landing his shots, from controlling the rhythm, from having that nice flow. And it puts him on the ropes, where Despain has a much better chance.
And now a little bit of a comeback, a rally by Despain. Left hand to the body from Salak. There's a right hand that was well timed. Lead right from Despain. Boy, if these cuts hold up, you almost have the sense that Despain's going to be there every step of the way.
Again, if I'm Despain's corner, I'm using that jab, telling him use that jab. Stabilize this guy. Do that. Get close to this guy.
He lands a good, solid left hand, follows it up with a right hand when Salak was against the ropes. turning out to be a pretty decent round number 5 for the Cuban. Wide sweeping right hand was off the mark. Got a little too aggressive that time, and now Salak comes back and works that jab, doubles it up.
Again, the jab for Despain, so important. Not only because it can land, not only because it can set up the right hand, but it keeps Salak from having that nice flow, that nice rhythm, being the boss on the outside. It gives him something that disrupts him. And if I'm Despain, I think I'd like to go to that body. It's a skinny body. And Salak likes to move that body around, likes to use those legs. You go to the body a little bit, those legs might start slowing down a little bit.
There's a left hand nearly to the hip that time, right on that belt line. There's a good snapping jab off the hip from Despain.
Everybody looked at this fight going in, and they see Hercules there in Despain. They say, he's just going to have to land a big shot. It's the jab that's going to get him back in this fight, and has gotten him back in this fight.
Good fight here. This is what happened in the closing moments of round number 2. The right hand from Salak that floored Despain. Lucky to survive that round.
Watch the jab. See, that last jab was put in front of his eyes, and then it gets taken away, and the right hand is right there. A right hand that Despain did not pick up.
Round number 6 of our main event. Such a meaningful fight. 2 undefeated light heavyweights signing on to fight each other. Both guys who are very promising, fast-rising prospects, soon to be contenders for the victor, a launching pad fight that'll get him into the Ring Magazine top 10 at 175 pounds. Glad to be joined by Yordenis Despain's trainer, Buddy McGirt. Buddy, we just saw what happened in round number 2. You've done a good job of settling down your guys, saying, hey, don't look for the knockout. Don't walk straight in. How do you see this fight right now?
Well, you know, he's getting caught up in the crowd. He's trying to knock the guy out, trying to show that he's tough. And, you know, and this kid's a good fighter. So, you know, we got to be sharp. This kid is really sharp. And, you know, he's a very good counterpuncher.
You know, Buddy, it's Teddy here. Everybody looked at your fighter, and he looks like Hercules. He's this bigger guy. He's the more physical-looking guy. And a lot of guys thought he had to just go in there and land the power shot. From the beginning, I thought the key for your guy was to use the jab.
That's all he has to do, Teddy. You know, old school way. Just keep the double jab. Once he gives the jab, he gets in range. But, you know, when he sits outside waiting for the bomb, the guy's catching him lunging in.
I agree with you. This fighter, Salak, is a rhythm fighter. He's a guy that likes to get a rhythm going. He's very smooth, but that jab disrupts his rhythm.
Yes, and that's the key. You know, I'm telling my guy, you know, don't try to hit him with the right hand from the outside. You're too far out. You know what I mean? So if he gets the jab and gets in range, then he can let his hands go, Teddy.
I agree with you. You want to see him go to the body, that's a skinny body. You want to see him start to take that body apart a little bit, too?
I've been telling him to jab to the chest. Don't worry about the head, because this gentleman leans back. So this jab is chest and body. The head will come eventually.
Buddy, thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Buddy McGirt, of course, 2-time world titleist, the long-standing, top-level elite trainer. Now working with Yordenis Despain for the first time. Heard in between rounds the translation that's being done in the corner as the urgency really kicked in at the end of round number 2, and Buddy had to get his point across. Chico Rivas has been working on those cuts and helping with some translation.
You know, some young fighters, some fans out there, they might say, well, why would Buddy tell him to throw to the chest? You're not going to hurt him in the chest. It's not about hurting him. It's about getting contact. It's about finding him.
Touch him, touch him.
You throw to the head, you miss him. You throw to the chest, you find him. And then you can find him with something else.
I'll tell you, they've done a good job on the cuts, Teddy.
Yeah, they have.
The blood was streaming down throughout round number 3. And they've done a good job of containing things here.
Well, 3 things to deal with those cuts. You have to have the right medicines, the right coagulants. You have to have adrenaline. You have to have Avatine, that's the white powder that you see, that's what's allowed in there. And you have to have pressure. And you have to have a guy who's not a big bleeder. Despain, not a big bleeder, it looks like.
Well, that jab actually just hit right on the target of one of those cuts. And now Buddy's got to get back to work. Stay with us, more to come.
Chuck doing a good job getting the right shots. There's the jab, setting up the right hand. We said it all night long to look for this. The jab sets it up, it blinds him, and the right hand right behind it. Jab takes his eyes away, Joe. That's all it is. You know, if you notice that jab, it's not even landing. It's not jarring him. It's not scoring points, but it's taking his vision away. opening the door for the right hand.
Creating opportunity. Many times, that's why when you look at the CompuBox punch stats and you see the jabs, you really want to key in on jabs thrown, sometimes just as effective. Let's look at some of those numbers, and you see the jabs thrown for Salak, 208, Despain, 182.
And again, that's the key for me. Yes, Despain needs to go to the body. Yes, he needs to land the right hand, especially in a fight that he's behind. But most importantly, he needs to use that jab. Again, not just to set up the punches for himself, but to take the rhythm, the offense away from his opponent.
Just at the end of the last round, there was a good stiff jab that landed on that cut right eye. And now the right eye of Despain is much more of a concern than it was for the last 4 rounds. It was cut in round 3, but here is worsened in round number 7 as he tries to come forward with the right hand. An impressive outing tonight so far by the Ukrainian native, now fighting out of California, Ismail Salak. His first televised, nationally televised main event. Of course, had the knockout of Daniel Judah on the undercard of the Roy Jones, Bernard Hopkins pay-per-view, but for many, this really the first time they're getting a good look at the talents of Salak. So many so high on his future.
And both fighters knew, obviously, and prove it on the scales, Joe, of what was at stake here. You think Salak's going to run out of gas? Maybe mentally, but not physically. He came in tonight the lightest since his debut, so he knew what was at stake. And the other man, Despain, does he have it in the gas tank to come back if he can avoid those right hands? Yes, he came in the lightest of his career.
Good stiff jab that time, snaps the head back by Salak. There's a lead right hand, and now blood streaming down the face of the unbeaten Cuban.
So we're not just seeing the physical skills, the skill sets of Salak. We're seeing the preparation, the cerebral preparation. He looked at film, and he saw what we saw. You can hit Despain with right hands, and you want to keep him off balance. And he's doing both those things. That right eye cut looks angry.
Starting to take on a crescent shape and curving down against the outside of that eye. There's a good right hand again by Salak, and you can see in that bounce in his step starting to get in that rhythm again as Despain keeps coming forward.
You know, it's getting late. Despain needs to double that jab up, get in there, land the right hand, and I think he should go to that body. Take those legs away a little.
Jaggy.
You ever see how a pitcher changes the angle that he's throwing the pitch? He goes sidearm. Well, that's exactly what Salak did here. Watch. He blinds him with the jab, and then he goes sidearm with the right hand, loops it a little bit because he understood that the glove was in a position where he couldn't land it straight.
Usually straight is great. Not in that case. He did a good job of altering that punch. That was a dominating 7th round. The last round power punches, you see 15 of 25 landed by Ismail Salak.
See, that's the experience, the calmness, the confidence that all that amateur background gives someone like Salak. He could see the opening was on the outside, and he changed the angle of the punch.
Buddy McGirt told Despain, you cannot stay on the outside. He is picking you apart at this point.
I agree 1,000%. At this point, use that jab to get close. Double it up. There's a distance. One's not going to get you close enough. That's what you need. 2, and then follow it with your feet and with the right hand.
Dr. Robert Boltich came over to the corner of Despain and was checking out those cuts, asking how the vision was.
See, now Despain has to be what his body suggests. That he's a monster, that he's a seek and destroy guy. But we said it from the beginning, Joe. He's not that kind of guy. He's a guy that likes to box. A guy that likes to be a little bit more sophisticated than just to walk in. Now he has to walk in. And again, is it in his makeup to do that?
Saw Salak wind up and land that right hand and blood spraying across the ring.
This reminded me of the amateurs a little bit. What I mean by that is in the amateurs, when you do them in the Olympics, when a guy gets ahead, he starts to go into that prevent. He moves around a lot. He knows that he's got to fight. He just doesn't want to give it up now. He starts to move. And Salak has experience at doing that, and you can almost see it here. He's done this before, I guarantee you, in international competition where he knows he's ahead, where they have that scoring system where it shows you what the score is. Everybody knows, and he starts moving. He knows he's ahead, and he's acting the same way. He's done this before. And that means that Spain really has to take chances now. And I know the temptation, Joe, when you're way behind for Spain is jab and then look for that right hand up top because you want to score something big. I think he should look downstairs because those legs are getting Salak out of trouble. They're keeping Spain off balance. You got to take those legs away. See that right hand to the head right now? I would throw it. I would bury it downstairs.
Now this was what they chose. 2 undefeateds coming to this point, and Despaigne
Tell him to stop
right now
following
facing the
jab
pressure
out
of knowing only 6 minutes
Cut
remain,
the ring off.
trying to stay unbeaten.
Tell
He
him
will
when
need
the
to
guy
rally
goes to his, when he cuts
and
the
mount
ring
a
off, the
comeback
guy's
here.
gonna throw the right hand. Okay, so stop.
Keep doing what you're doing and give me the jab, change your rhythm of the
And
jab.
Ismail
Jab,
Salak
jab, hard
with
jab.
Shadid Saluki.
Jab, jab, right. Feint, walk.
Trained
Feint,
Layman Brewster
back.
to his upset
Right
of
hand.
Vladimir Klitschko.
Okay.
For the winner tonight,
Work on. Okay.
the lofty status of being among the best in the world. Teddy, we talked about it earlier. The performance we're seeing tonight with Salak, if he can hold on and grab this win the way he's gone about it, he's got to be very much in the mix.
And again, I had him here before. I might put him up around here now.
And of course, Glenn Johnson will be contending at 168 pounds. So that creates another opening in the light heavyweight division. Round number 9. Does Despaigne have what it takes to figure this out? To mount a rally.
You know you're trying to land probably a right hand. I mean, that's the payoff punch right now for Despaigne to get back into this. But you have to know what you're trying to land it against. You have to understand your target, and it's a moving target. So I'm lowering the sights if I'm Despaigne, and I'm shooting that right hand. I'm going to discipline myself as much as I want to shoot it to the head. I'm going to shoot it to the body. I have a better chance to land it there, slow him down, and then go upstairs.
Reminder, college basketball tomorrow, Big East doubleheader. Louisville, West Virginia, then number 7 Notre Dame, and number 16 UConn. College basketball presented by 5 Hour Energy.
See, watch when the jab of Despaigne stops coming. That comes. When there's no jab to control Salak's rhythm on the outside, he jumps in and out with those smooth, quick punches anytime he wants. So the jab is not only important for Despaigne to set up the offense, but it's his defense. It really is his defense. It keeps Salak from controlling the rhythm, from pot shotting. It takes a lot of discipline for a guy like Despaigne to remind himself, I gotta stay with that jab. I gotta stay with that jab. As soon as you turn that jab off, that happens.
Just a little stop and pop from Salak. Blood splattered everywhere ringside here as those cuts around both eyes opened up in the 3rd round.
Well, this will be one of those weekends when, again, your cleaner is going to wonder what you do for a living.
Yes, indeed. There's enough DNA to go around ringside.
Says, well, this guy is such a quiet guy, such an unassuming guy, such a gentleman, and you know what? He
brings in bloody suits every week.
He might be a dangerous guy. And right now, it's getting to a dangerous point for Despaigne.
There's a lunging left hand. Is that lottery ticket in Despaign's gloves? Can he cash something and hit the jackpot late here? Slaughter pot shot for a moment again with the absence of the jab, and then a late rally here in the closing moments of round number 9. as Salak goes on the attack. They will have 1 round to go as the blood continues to stream down Despain's face. Look at that left eye.
To the crowd. Okay. Listen. Hey, tell him this round the guys coming up gunning.
Hey, keep sticking to the jab, taking the turning. You don't know what you're going to do. And change it up, pop.
Take a look at those jabs. And then that left hook. I was talking about it early, Joe. We haven't seen a lot of it, but besides everything else, Salak throws a good left hook to the body. And again, it starts with the jab. He goes upstairs. He goes downstairs. Mixes it up. Now watch at the end of the round here. You're going to see a desperate Despain. He tries to get into his mind. He wants him to fight with him. So watch at the bell. Watch. He's going to go after him, and he's not buying it.
Yep.
That shows me everything I need to see for the future of Salak. He is honed in. He knows that he has to concentrate on what's in front of him and not get caught up in anything else.
Time!
See, a lot of fighters would not have the capacity to kind of ignore what Despain just did right there. But Salak has the confidence and the professionalism and the attitude, walk right to his corner and say to himself, no, you're not going to trick me into showing my manhood, doing something that would be foolish, something that would give you the landscape you want. And you can't blame Despain for doing what he did because he's desperate. At the end of that round, he said, let me get into his face a little bit. Maybe this last round, I can get him to fight with me more than he should.
Comes charging in that time.
Punch out.
Let's look at the CompuBox total punches. 237 Salak landed, 136 Despain. Of course, this fight turned very early in Salak's favor with the one big power punch, the right hand, in the closing moments of the second round, and then peppering him with an assault in the third round that opened up 2 cuts.
You know, Joe, obviously, at this point, it looks pretty desperate, pretty bleak for Despain. But if this fight was 12 rounds, he'd be awful happy, wouldn't he? And Brian Kenny just informed us, Brian Kenny always looking out for us, just informed us that the promoter for Despain is complaining that this was supposed to be a 12-round fight.
You know, I was watching ringside as Louis DeCubas was having a heated discussion with the Florida commissioner, who is Thomas Malloy. And Malloy picked up the bout sheet, brought it right over ringside, which was probably the signed agreement and the licensed bout sheet, and said it says right there 10, and that's it. This is the 10th and final round. Trying to buy his fighter a couple extra rounds.
Yeah. Trying to find a way to turn a really, truly dark cloud into a silver lining.
Shows you how far DeCubas will go for his guys.
Well, he's trying anything he can. And he understands 10 is not going to get it done.
Final half minute. It is desperation time for Despain.
And if 10 is going to get it done, it's got to get done in the next 25 seconds, and he's going to have to get done with a right hand.
Does he have it in him? Can Despain come up with it?
You know, we said from the beginning it was going to be about right hands. Both guys right hands. Despain has to show in the next 10 seconds a big right hand.
Well, the list of light heavyweight contenders will have a new name added to it. A good, strong night from the Ukrainian native Ismail Salak. Battered and bloody is Despain. He kept trying, but it was too much to overcome. We will hear from the judges when we return to ESPN's Wide World of Sports at Disney World. Stay with us. Punch of the Night is brought to you by Just for Men Hair Color, and it leads off our highlights of Salak and Despain. Second round, Teddy.
The jab sets up the right hand, and that would be there all night long.
That is our punch of the night, brought to you by Just for Men Hair Color. As for the rest of the fight, well, there will be plenty of more punches from Salak, like in the third round when he opened up 2 cuts over both the right and left eye of Despain. But Despain would make a mild rally in the 5th.
The right hand lands a little bit. He gets Salak where he needs him against the ropes, where he can't use those wheels, and where he slows him down for a moment.
And then in round 7, that looping right hand that you pointed out, Teddy, by Salak, he would continue to do damage. He was steady throughout. We heard Buddy McGirt trying to tell his charge to Spain. First fight they were together. Hey, you can no longer stay on the outside. He's tagging you there. So let's look at the CompuBox final numbers. Total punches, 252 out of 634. The edge goes to Salak there, connecting on 40% of his total punches. Teddy's scorecard, and keep in mind that second round, 10-8, goes 98-91. Let's hear from the judges, and for that, we send it up to Bob Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the Jostin Center at the ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex, Walt Disney World, after 10 rounds of championship boxing, we go to the scorecards. Judges Thomas Nardoni and Alex Levin both scored about 98-91. Judge Mike Ross scores about 99-90. For the winner, by unanimous decision, Ismail Salak.
Welcome to the big leagues, Ismail Salak. Teddy, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, making no excuses for Despain, but something that we didn't mention during the fight. Despain had a lot to deal with. Not only the best opponent and the most experienced opponent because of his amateur background that Despain has ever dealt with, but he was going into this fight with a new trainer. Not an easy spot to be going into a fight with a new trainer. As good as Buddy McGirt is, when you're going in there with a new philosophy, new things in the gym, usually you don't want to go in there in this kind of fight. I don't know how much it hurt him, but I know one thing. Salak is pretty good.
Brian Kenny is with the 15-0 Ismail Salak. BK.
Yes, indeed, an outstanding victory for you, Ismail. You were able to get to him early in the second round. How were you able to do that?
I'm just trying. My coach did so tell me have fun, just turn, jab, and I catch him, just relaxing and catch him.
What was your thought process then? Get after him or just box? What did you want to do after you hurt him?
Just boxing, because my corner said boxing, don't hurt, don't try, you know, because when you try, you can punch, counter punch. You know.
You did get caught in the 5th round. What happened that enabled him to get back into the fight?
I don't know. No, nothing happened.
Well, you got caught with a shot, a good shot. I wouldn't say you got hurt, but you got pushed back and you weren't as dominant. So how was he able to get back in?
A little bit translated.
A translator. How was he able to get back in? How tough was it in the middle rounds, round 5, where Ismail did get hurt?
Он говорит, что ты в 5-м раунде пропустил удар, так тебе было тяжело.
Oh, no. I no punch. I no hurt.
You weren't hurt?
No, I no one hurt.
Okay. I know Teddy Atlas had mentioned later in the fight you wouldn't get baited into some sort of brawl because he wanted you to, come after him. Yeah, how were you able to resist that temptation?
No, it's I got good experience for this. For Cuban, I a lot of times fight with Cuban fighters. It's easy for me. I know what he didn't do. I just do my job.
Ismail, big win for you in your career. You showed your class and your great amateur background. Congratulations to you. Ismail Salak, again, a winner here, 15-0, still undefeated. Joe, Teddy.
Thanks, BK. He hands Despain the first loss of his career.